can you tell the difference between a person who is legitimately a victim of abuse and an abuser who is reversing roles and playing the victim? In this video, I'm going to share with you 3 ways that you can tell. Now, first, for those of you who are new to my channel, welcome. I'm Shaneen Megji. I'm a coach that helps people to heal and recover their identities from toxic relationships. I also help people to successfully navigate difficult life transitions. Welcome to my channel on Toxicity is Not Your Destiny. I create these videos to help you navigate toxic relationships in your life from a biblical, practical, and spiritual perspective. So if you'd like to receive regular content from me on this subject, take a moment, click that subscribe button, click that bell, because I'm going to be bringing you videos on a regular basis to empower you in navigating toxic relationships. My goal is to get out a video every week or so. So without further ado, let's dive into the subject. When an abusive narcissist is called out on their behavior, whether they are exposed or confronted, it is likely that they will play the victim rather than own up to their abuse. And why is that? Because a narcissist is forever running from their shame. In order to not feel any shame, they will project, deflect, manipulate anything to avoid facing their demons. Jennifer Freud, a psychology researcher, coined the term Darvo to explain one of the insidious ways that an abuser manipulates when being confronted. So Darvo stands for deny, attack, reverse victim, and offender. Essentially, Darvo means that a narcissist will deny that they are being abusive. Then they will turn around and attack you, possibly with threats, slander, a smear campaign, humiliation, harassment, making your life miserable in some way to intimidate you so that you will stop confronting them. After that, they will reverse roles of making themselves into a victim and you as the offender against them. So if you're a third party hearing 2 stories, first, the story of the abusive narcissist who is positioning themselves as a victim and making the victim out to be the abuser, maybe even saying it is the victim who is the actual narcissist. And then second, you have the story of the victim who is expressing that it is the narcissist who is the abuser. Well, how can you tell the truth? There are 2 things to factor in when determining the truth, so you cannot just accept things at face value, but it's important to probe more deeply into these contentious relationships. So the first thing to factor in is that a narcissist doesn't function out of their true self, but rather out of a false self, which means that they have no stable interior core. So without that stable core, they're like a chameleon and they can reinvent themselves completely at every turn. So much so that they believe with all their hearts that they are the person they have reinvented themselves to be. So that is dangerous because a narcissist can cover up their abusive persona and reinvent themselves into a victim who claims to be afraid of the one who is calling them out on their abuse. And the other people seeing the narcissist in this convincing role may easily fall for it. Now, the second thing to factor in is that a narcissist engages in something called splitting, which is seeing everything in black and white. So they can easily villainize people and become so emotional, dysregulated, and antagonistic in their accusations. It can actually cause a third party to believe someone has wronged them terribly. In the third party's assessment, people just don't become so extremely emotional and wound up for no good reason. So a third party will assume that there must be a good reason why the narcissist is so extremely upset. A third party doesn't just naturally assume that a person sitting across from them could be a different breed of a human being, wired very differently with a predatory nature, especially if that third party has zero understanding of narcissism or the psyche of an abuser. A third party person is likely to instinctively believe that the abuser in your life is human just like them, and it will not be in their frame of reference to conceive that this person could be a wolf in sheep's clothing. And a narcissist, a third thing to factor in, I know I said two, but a third thing to factor in is that a narcissist may go as far as injuring themselves on purpose to make it look like they were the abused ones in the relationship. So certainly a narcissist can play these cards when they engage in Darvo and reverse roles, which makes it difficult for a third party which has no knowledge of narcissism, psychopathy, or other cluster B personality disorders to see through. Now, this video is based on the assumption that the abuser in the relationship is a narcissist, a wolf in sheep's clothing, and the victim is not. Now, if both abuser and victim are narcissists and one narcissist is overpowering the other narcissist, then what I'm about to share does not really fit that scenario. So please keep that in mind. Also, when I talk about someone being a narcissist, I'm referring to a person who is chronically and continuously entitled, arrogant, exploitative, lacking in empathy, grandiose in their thinking of themselves, high conflict, manipulative, envious, easily angered, lying, always in need of validation, affirmation, praise, and honor from others to feel good about themselves. A narcissist is someone who practices all of these things unapologetically, and that is their MO, and they see nothing wrong with it. So with all that said, I'm going to share first one important thing you must do in order to see through a narcissist's manipulative tactics in engaging in Darvo, and then I'm going to give you 3 ways to see through it all. So here goes. The first thing you must do, understand first what are the fundamental motives behind a victim of narcissistic abuse and the abuser. Now, if an abuser is engaging in Darvo, look at the motive for Darvo. Darvo is a form of manipulation. It is also a way of fighting and deflecting and avoiding blame and shame. It is a way of avoiding taking responsibility and accountability. Typically, a victim of abuse wants to feel safe, they want to heal, and they may be open for reconciliation if their abuser was willing to do the long, hard work of facing their demons and dealing with their sin issues and character issues that led them to be abusive and possibly unfaithful in the first place. A true victim is seeking honesty and transparency from the abuser because that is foundational for healing. Jesus said, "You shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free." A victim of abuse is usually truth-seeking, whereas an abuser engaging in Darvo is usually truth-avoiding because they don't want to take responsibility. They do not want to own up to their part, but blame. An abusive narcissist has the following interests: to avoid being held accountable, to not lose their reputation, to maintain their status in the eyes of people, to not lose the benefits that they have been able to have through their abuse and manipulation and coercive control, to avoid shame, and to punish the people who confronted and/or exposed them. Meanwhile, the victim's interests are to heal, to be heard, believed, and supported, for justice, for God to restore and redeem what has been lost, to possibly reconcile with his or her abuser if the abuser was willing to do the long and hard work of facing their demons and dealing with their sins and character issues that caused them to be abusive and possibly unfaithful in the first place. So in considering where both parties are coming from, you can probably tell who is a true victim and who is engaged in Darvo because their motives will inevitably leak out in their words and actions. The Bible says that out of the outflow of the heart, the mouth speaks. So you can certainly know by paying close attention to what both parties are saying and not saying and how they say things, who is the victim and who isn't. And this was a tactic that King Solomon in the Old Testament used when 2 women brought a dead baby and living baby to him. Both of the women claimed that the living baby was theirs and the dead baby was the other's. So because Solomon could not tell which woman was lying and which one was telling the truth, with wisdom from the Holy Spirit, he announced that the living baby would be cut in half and each woman would be given a half. And so that was when the true motives of each woman were uncovered. The true mother objected to this solution and told Solomon, please just give the baby to the other woman. The mom could not bear the thought of seeing her baby get killed. Meanwhile, the other woman insisted that Solomon follow through with his ruling and cut the baby in half. So Solomon saw both their responses, and by their responses, he could tell who the real mother was and who was not. And he ended up giving the living child to the woman who wanted him to live. So truly, there was divine wisdom operating in Solomon in that story. And that is something you can certainly pray that God will grant to people who are listening to your story and the narcissist story. If a narcissist or abuser is avoiding accountability and seeking to deflect, you can be sure they will be more into a blame-shifting mode, of villainizing and demonizing the other mode. They are not looking to explore or dialogue or self-reflect, because all that could mean uncovering the truth about what they've really done and who they really are. So when a person does a lot of blaming that is void from any self-reflection or self-awareness, a way to test where they're at is simply to ask them, what part did you have to play in this outcome? A narcissist would have a hard time answering that question. At best, they may say, yes, I'm not perfect and nobody's perfect. And if they were to say something like that, then you ask them to walk you through in detail about all the parts they had to play in creating their outcome. So asking them to do this will be difficult if a narcissist goes as far as to admit that they were wrong. If they were to admit that they were wrong, they will likely speak in generalities and not refer to anything specific and anything they did wrong. Narcissists generally do not look too deep in themselves, and they have little self-awareness. Now, if you were to ask a victim of narcissistic abuse this same question, this actually also may be hard for them too, because the question does insinuate blame and lack of belief if it's not mixed with love and compassion, and the victim has been falsely blamed so much and gaslighted. So it could be a hard question for them to swallow. So definitely you want to have an attitude of love and compassion in asking the question of either person. But if a victim were to think through carefully, they might say something along the lines of, I was afraid, I didn't think I had any other choice, I was thinking about the best interests of my children, I was told to love and submit more by my church, I was trauma bonded, he threatened to destroy my life if I left, here's what my experience was. And then they will proceed to tell a story of patterns of behaviors, incidents, and how those things affected them. A victim is usually looking to tell their story. A narcissist, not so much. They're looking to play the victim by blame shifting. A victim, on the other hand, is looking to heal and possibly reconcile. So those goals require truth-telling and truth-facing. They will share more in a way that is self-reflective and that is storytelling. Their goal is not necessarily to slander or smear the name of their abuser, but more to tell their story because for so long they have been voiceless. For them, it is about freedom and healing and knowing the truth because it is the truth that makes them free. Here's a second way a third party can see through a narcissist's manipulative tactics. An abuser is likely to be more vocal than the victim. Why is that? Because a narcissist is seeking to preempt the victim's story by starting a PR campaign and setting the tone first as themselves being abused or betrayed. Their interest is to maintain their image, so they are about doing whatever is necessary by preempting any possible damage to their reputations by controlling the narrative and what people might believe about them. On the other hand, victims are already so burned and depleted by the trauma they've been in that they're looking to heal and looking to share their story with safe and trustworthy people. They're not out doing a PR campaign about how much they've been victimized. A narcissist usually engages in splitting by seeing people as either all good or all bad, So because they see themselves as the victim and want to punish the other person for exposing them or betraying them, they will want to see that person punished or see their demise. So when they share, their intent is to punish or see retribution. They're not seeking for the rehabilitation and well-being of the victim, but quite the opposite. And that will come through in how they tell their story. On the other hand, a victim, as much as they have been hurt and traumatized by their abuser, their first and foremost goal is healing and telling their story and wanting honesty and transparency because they have been lied to, manipulated, and deceived so much. They are not on a crusade to talk about wanting to see their abuser's demise or punishment. Now, granted, a victim may be very angry and they may very well want justice and revenge. It's natural to struggle with those feelings. And they may be tempted with the strong desire to see their abuser punished for their wrongdoings, especially if they seem to have gotten away with so much for so long. But unlike a narcissist, even if a victim is wrestling with all these angry, maybe even rageful feelings, they're not going to go around and craft their entire story around this one point, because a victim is not only dealing with anger, but with a complexity of many different emotions that they are holding together, such as grief and sadness and loss and fear, along with anger. While a narcissist tends to think only in black and white, in all good or all bad, a victim generally has the capacity to talk about the good moments in the relationship as well as the terrible moments, and conclude that the abusive narcissist was wearing a mask to conceal their true nature. But a narcissist cannot hold together the good, the bad, and the ugly of the person they abused, so they will see them as all bad and forget anything good that the person has ever done. They will recreate the reality of the relationship in a way to make it seem like it was all bad all along. So for them, they can paint a person as all bad and carry on their crusade of wanting to see them punished and looking to see their demise. So let me summarize the 3 points on how to spot the victim. The first point, a narcissist typically goes into blame shifting and slandering mode, whereas the victim goes more into storytelling mode. The second point, a narcissist is more vocal about their story as a PR move with a bigger number of people versus the victim who only shares with safe and supportive people. The third point, a narcissist sees the other as all bad and wants to punish them or see their demise, whereas the victim wants to heal and they're dealing with a complexity of emotions. So I hope these things were helpful. If you are thinking of leaving or have left a toxic environment and you are in a season of transition, check out a free training I have put together. It is all about 3 key ways to navigate a transition. These are things that brought a massive breakthrough in my life when I was going through a difficult transition. I have included the link in the description box below. If you'd like to see more content from me and have not subscribed, please subscribe, click the bell so that you can get the alerts, because I will be posting videos on a regular basis to empower you in navigating toxic relationships in your life. If you have suggestions of topics you would like me to cover, please feel free to drop your ideas in the comments section. And this brings me to the end of my video. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you. I look forward to seeing you in the next video.